Hello, crypto boys and ghouls, and welcome back to the channel, Tales from the Cryptomancer, where we feature content on play-to-earn games on the blockchain, such as Splinterlands. And in today's video, I wanted to do a revisit of the Chaos Legion card tier list. I know the last time we looked at the Chaos Legion and ranked them in a card tier list, it was when the test server was first launched for Chaos Legion and the stats weren't finalized. So I wanted to come back, revisit the tier listing, and give an update for the community after having played a decent amount of battles at the gold level, and talk about where I think the cards rank in each of the splinters, and just give my opinion and take on that. So without further ado, let's hop into the tier list. And I'm going to provide a link to all the tier lists here in the video description, so you can take a look at that. And we're going to do the tier list by splinter, short videos for each one of them. And today we're going to start with the Fire Splinter. And here's my take on the tier list for Chaos Legion for Fire. And let's start with the S tier, or cards that I think are pretty amazing and pretty much a staple for Chaos Legion, in this case Fire Splinter teams. So first I want to talk about the Antoid Platoon, and the reason why I think it is a great card for Fire in Chaos Legion. And let's take a look at it here. So the Antoid Platoon at gold level, right? Max gold level is level 8. So the Antoid Platoon is a 4 mana tank with 2 attack, 2 speed, 3 shield, and 4 health. And what really makes this card, I think, amazing is the combination at gold level of the shield ability coupled with scavenge. At its very base mana cost at 4 level, you're getting 4 health with shield, which is excellent when you combine it also with the 3 shields there. And then when you add scavenge on top of that, it really just builds up the health, and the health is doubly valuable with shield. Now obviously it has a weakness to magic teams, but as long as you pair it up with an opponent that's not going to have a strong magic attack, you're going to be fine. And honestly, if you're looking at a strong magic attack opponent as a probability, you're going to want to look at alternate units such as Tusk the Wide or even Grum in those cases. But what I really like about the Antoid Platoon is its mana cost. At 4 mana, it is a very inexpensive frontline tank that is surprisingly resilient with the shield and scavenge abilities. So definitely, I'm a big fan of Antoid Platoon, and I think for the mana cost, it is a fantastic tank for Fire. So the next amazing card for Fire, in my opinion, is the 10E Striker. If we look at the 10E Striker at gold level, it's going to max out at level 6 here for gold. And at level 6, it's going to have, for 5 mana, 4 attack, 3 speed, and 7 health. All very respectable at 5 mana, but it has the abilities of sneak and dodge. And what's nice about the 10E Striker is it's decent speed, right? 3 is pretty average, but it's got the dodge, which gives it an additional 25% essentially chance to dodge, and it's got the 7 health. So you can put this at the back of your lineup and feel pretty confident that it's going to stick around for a bit, holding your tail end of your lineup intact. And because it has the 4 sneak attack damage, it's definitely going to dish out some punishment along the way. And I think this is just a great card for Fire, especially when coupled with Tarsa with the extra health and the extra melee attack damage. Now moving on to our A tier list, here I have Tusk the Wide. And honestly, I would probably have Tusk the Wide in the S tier category if Grum hadn't come along. And the tier list template doesn't have Grum available, but if Grum was available to list in here, I would list Grum at the S tier level, at the amazing level for this tier list just because Grum is a fantastic card. And we have another video on Grum if you're interested in why I think Grum is great. Honestly, Grum with scenarios like reverse speed, melee attack from any position, super sneaker opportunity is really, really strong. Can be a difference maker for sure. And then couple him with summoners potentially like Kitty or Quid becomes really, really dominant. But let's not talk too much about Grum. We already know Grum is great. Let's talk about Tusk the Wide. So Tusk the Wide at max level, 4 gold as a tank, is a 6 mana tank with 2 melee attack damage, 1 speed, and 14 health. The speed and the melee attack damage isn't that impressive, but the 14 health with Void at 6 mana is quite strong, especially when matched against the correct opponent. And then his Inspire ability just really buffs up the team while he's in play, especially coupled with Tarsa, adding essentially +2 melee attack damage combined with Tarsa there. Really, really great supporting ability while holding the front of your team intact, especially against magic units. 14 health with Void against a magic heavy team is definitely very respectable for Fire, and it's not something they've had prior to, for example, Grum coming along. So Tusk the Wide, a great unit. If Grum wasn't introduced as a legendary, I would definitely have Tusk the Wide as a amazing unit, but he's still very, very good. The next Fire Splinter A tier card I'd like to talk about is the Forgotten One. And the Forgotten One here also would probably be, in my mind, an S tier if Grum hadn't come along, because Grum is kind of like a great combination of the Forgotten One and Tusk the Wide, meaning Grum has great offense but also has great defense against magic, and he's kind of the best of both worlds. The Forgotten One is still very, very good, especially in Noxious Fumes battles, but even without Noxious Fumes, he's very strong offensively, right? So at 9 mana, he has 5 damage for melee, 2 speed, 5 shield, and 10 health. All of those are very strong stats other than the speed, but he also has, from an offensive perspective, Retaliate and Piercing, which is very strong. So if you're not going up against a magic attack team, Forgotten One is very, very strong from an offensive capability, as well as has good defense as well. And again, in Noxious Fumes, he's very strong as well from a scenario perspective. The next A-tier card that I like to talk about is the Scavbo Chemist. And the Scavbo Chemist can be a situational play, right? He's really a must-have when it comes to Noxious Fumes battles, because he can cleanse your frontline tank if they don't have immunity, for example, and provide multiple rounds potentially of cleanse with 5 health with Tarsa's plus 1 health. It gives him basically 3 rounds of cleansing before he goes down. And at 2 mana, it's a great value. Certainly for Noxious Fumes, it's a must-have card. But even without Noxious Fumes, the reason I list him as an A-tier support card is because he also has Slow at 2 mana, which is also a very valuable ability in the Chaos Legion modern format. And if you watch my other videos around the 3 top abilities for Chaos Legion meta, Slow is definitely in that list of top abilities. So again, I think for 2 mana, being able to add Slow here to your general team for Fire is a nice option, even outside of the Noxious Fumes utility for the Scavbo Chemist. The next card I'd like to talk about in the A-tier list for Fire is the Lava Spider. Now, the Lava Spider is great if you have Jotun, for example, but not everyone has Jotun. But the reason why I list the Lava Spider as still an A-tier card for Fire teams in general is basically just because of the stats here. For 3 mana, you're getting 2 archery damage with 4 speed and 5 health, which are excellent stats just of themselves for 3 mana, and then you combine it with the ability of Snipe as well, just makes this a very versatile card, especially for low or mid mana matches where you want some extra DPS with Snipe. And the Snare is just, an extra nice added ability at max level gold here. So again, Lava Spider really shines under Jotun, but even for base fire teams under like Tarsa, for example, in the modern format, Lava Spider is still a good value. The next unit I like to talk about at the A tier list for fire is Jin and Fernai. And I know Jin and Fernai may not seem a must-have for fire at first glance, but he is quite versatile for his stats and his usage. Now, fire is not really known for magic focus, but here if we look at Jin and Fernai at max level gold, for 7 mana, you're getting 4 magic damage with 4 speed and 4 health. And really what makes him an A tier card in my opinion is the ability of stun. Having a stun being fired off at 4 speed and with 4 magic damage is quite strong. And then added to it the Giant Killer ability, which will double his damage against units with over 10 mana cost, increasing that magic damage to 8 with a stun, can just really shut down the other team's main damage dealer at the front of the line. So for that reason, I think Jin and Fernai is a very versatile card and should be worthy of consideration at the A tier level. Now, if Jin and Fernai's speed was just 1 higher, or the other card I want to talk about a little bit later in this list was 1 speed lower, it would definitely be an amazing card because then you can combine stun with knockout. We'll talk a little bit later about why that combination is not as reliable. But regardless, stun is a great ability and is definitely something that's very desirable for units to have. Now the last A tier card for fire is going to be the Scorched Fiend. And honestly, I've listed all the Fiends at the max level gold in the A tier list because a 0 cost card for Splinters is pretty much a must-have. You're going to want to have access to all the Fiends, at least at level 1 for gold tier. And I think every deck should have them available if you're competing at a high level. So here, no surprise, Scorched Fiend coming in at an A tier listing. Now, I don't have them, the Fiends listed at any other rating other than A tier because they only really get their abilities unlocked at Diamond and above, and we're really just focused for this tier listing series on the gold level. So none of the Fiends have their abilities unlocked at gold level. That would differentiate themselves from other Splinters. Now let's go to the B tier list, and these are the decent cards that you might have in your deck that you might use from time to time. And the first one I want to talk about is the Radiated Brute. The Radiated Brute at gold level is actually pretty decent because although the Radiated Brute starts out at level 1 with 1 speed, by the time it gets to max level gold, its speed is all the way at 4, which is obviously a lot higher than 1, and it becomes a little bit more useful. So with 5 mana, the Radiated Brute has 3 melee damage, 4 speed, 6 health with reach, making it certainly a decent off tank for fire, especially when coupled with Tarsa, moving that melee damage to 4 and the health to 7. What makes the Radiated Brute definitely a solid unit is the Enrage coming into play at the gold level, because that's going to boost your melee damage and your speed once the Radiated Brute takes damage. Now, it doesn't have a ton of health, so it's not going to be enraged for very long necessarily, but while it is enraged, it is going to be a very fast and deadly card. The next card I want to talk about is the Molten Ash Golem here, and the Molten Ash Golem is really strong under Jotun, but even for a modern team under Tarsa, still certainly a solid card. It works nice as an off tank. You can compare it to kind of a slower, beefier version of the Radiated Brute in the fact that it has 2 archery damage with close range. It's slower at 2 speed, but it also has more health with 10 base health, and it provides Weaken as a support ability as well, helping you eliminate the other team faster. So at 6 mana, a little bit more expensive than the Radiated Brute, plays a little bit of a different role, but certainly a viable off tank or secondary tank to consider for your fire team. Again, if you have a Jotun team and your Jotun is at gold level, the Molten Ash Golem is a great option for that team. Kind of a cheaper version of a lava launcher as an off tank for Jotun, which is nice. But generally speaking, even for a Tarsa-led fire team, still a solid unit to consider. So the next card at the B tier is the Scavbo Firebolt. And the Scavbo Firebolt is a decent card. It just has really decent stats. At gold level, it's going to max out for 4 mana at 3 archery damage, 4 speed, and 5 health, which are solid stats. And if the Firebolt had a speed of 3 with a knockout ability, it would be ideal, because then you can couple the Firebolt with the stun of the Jin and Fernai, so that the Jin and Fernai could get a stun off, and then the Scavbo Firebolt can get a knockout attack off. But because it has the same speed as the Jin and Fernai, when it has the knockout ability, you get a little bit of randomness there, and you don't always get the knockout blow after the stun. So that combination on the Modern League format is not ideal. Had there been a little bit better speed parity or combination between those two units, this would definitely be rated higher than it is. The next card at the B tier is Jin Apprentice, and this card at max level gold for 5 mana has 3 magic damage, 3 speed, and 5 health with the Death Blow ability. The reason why I think this is just a decent card is its stat line is certainly not terrible. It puts it kind of in the realm of the Magi of the Forest for historical purposes on the Earth team for kind of mana to damage ratios. It's kind of in that range, and that's certainly a good range. At the 4 to 5 mana, doing 2 to 3 magic damage is certainly respectable. Again, the problem with Fire is it's not really known to be a magic focused team at this point in time in the game meta, so this card is just kind of, there. It's not terrible, it's not bad, it's not great either. And this is why it's in the B tier. And the last card for B tier for Fire is Ifrit Rising. A little bit disappointing to see a legendary card here in the kind of B tier, but it's really because the recharge ability is just a little not right in its current format in the meta for a game. At 8 mana with 3 magic damage, 3 speed, and 8 health, with recharge, you're going to do 9 magic damage to your opponent when you do fire. It's just the slowness and the delay of that damage is not always optimized. You can be, for example, blasting 9 magic damage into something that has only 2 health left. It's just not consistent enough to get its value out of it. Firing every other turn. And I think that's a problem with pretty much all recharge monsters under the Chaos Legion format right now. We'll see if there's a summoner or other things that, like a game scenario that changes recharge up and makes it a little bit more valuable. But until that time, really, most recharge units aren't going to be seen as top meta at the current moments. And our last card to talk about is the Radiated Scorcher. It's I've categorized this in the niche category, and maybe that's being generous. Let's look at the radiated Scorcher here. At the gold level, it has 2 melee attack damage, 3 speed, 2 health, and shatter. And the reason I listed it in the niche category versus the meh or the trash category is because it has the shatter ability. And when you have the rule sets of melee attacks from any position, opportunity, or super sneak, having a 1-cost unit with a shatter ability at a decent speed of 3 can be valuable to peel armor off your opponent. And for that reason, it's kind of a niche unit for those scenarios. So that is the summary for Fire of where I believe in the current meta the card tier lists should be for the Fire Splinter. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? And if so, where would you make changes to this tier listing? Let me know in the comments below. I also am going to provide a link to this image and this diagram for the tier list so you can review it offline as well outside of this video. And stay tuned as we're going to be releasing daily here our card tier list for the remaining splinters for Chaos Legion. If this video has been beneficial, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel for more timely content around Splinterlands, and until next time, keep stacking those stats.